fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Lives Day 4 Training Camp Recap. I am your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined, of course, as always, by my partner in crime this year at Training Camp, Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, how are you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm glad that we don't have to worry about the weather for this show.
A lot less exciting than last night's show. Shout out, obviously, to everyone that braved the severe thunderstorm that just showed up out of nowhere to join us for that live event. So shout out to you guys for sure. That was a lot of fun. Loved getting to meet everyone. Appreciate everyone that made the time. I don't want to like start giving people shout outs because I'll definitely forget someone, but I know for sure Blake Newsom. I remember as one of the guys that was there until like 10:30 when they made us leave. So a lot of fun. What do you think? 30 people maybe?
There was a bunch. There was a lot of
Yeah.
people, and a huge thank you to all of the guys that came out and girls that came out to hang out with us, to meet us, and I mean, I had a blast. It was one of my favorite things that we've ever done, and yeah, it was just so fun. One, it was really fun recording a show in person. We've never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went back and listened to some of it. The audio sounded pretty good. Like
It
the
was
show,
fine.
like
Yeah.
really good. And it was just so fun. Like a, for a couple hours, like after the show, just chopping it up with people, talking with folks about like our different backgrounds, about being Falcons fans, and we were asked a lot of training camp questions that hopefully we were able to answer sufficiently, and it was loads of fun, and just one, it was like super exciting, but just as exciting as it was also a very humbling experience, just having a bunch of people who have been watching us from the beginning or from near the beginning coming up, telling us how much they love the show, how much it means to them, telling us how proud they were of all of the growth that we've had, and in us. And I think I speak for both of us when I say that having those interactions, having those experiences with you guys, it just makes us want to work even harder. It makes us want to deliver even better content. And you guys, if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be doing this like at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. It was cool to meet everyone. I know for a fact, like I remember Daryl Moore was one of the OGs back from like the Facebook Live days that we got to see. So appreciate Daryl for coming out. Appreciate everyone really. It meant a lot to see everyone and hang out, and we appreciate it. It was fun. We're definitely gonna do it again. So if you didn't make it out this year and you're worried that like, oh, I missed my chance, no, we're definitely gonna do it again. Probably try to make it a yearly thing. I mean, if we could do it more than that, that'd be sweet. But we'll start with yearly, and we'll see where it goes from there, obviously. But yeah, appreciate you guys for coming out. Before we dive into the takes, because there's a lot of takes to get to from today's practice. It was a pretty exciting one. Let me read you a quick message from our sponsors this week. First of all, we got betonline.ag, your number one source for all your betting needs. You can get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Perhaps you're feeling overly confident in this Falcons offense, or maybe you will be after we give you today's report. You can bet on Atlanta to win the NFC South right now. Last I checked, they were still over plus 200, so decent odds on that if you're high on the Falcons. You can do it right now before the rest of the league catches up to that hype train. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as they've got you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs. BetOnline is also the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. And remember, guys, use the promo code BELIEVE, 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All right. One more, your guys' favorite, right? Everybody's favorite ad, Blue Chew. This episode is once again sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, no, it can be awkward, but let's talk about sex. Remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up, BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at bluechew.com. Chew it and do it. Great stuff. Great stuff. Guys, we've also got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code BUCKET. That's BUCKET at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. BlueChew.com, promo code BUCKET to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew once again for sponsoring today's podcast. All right, Adnan. Well, I'm sure
The Falcoholic is helping you have sex.
Yeah, I mean, that's the takeaway, right? Assuming you want it, consensual only, of course. But yeah, we're we don't discriminate. We want to help everybody around here in all aspects of life. Because the Falcons aren't necessarily the best for that. I think the Falcons have given us all performance anxiety from time to time. So I sympathize absolutely. But yes, someone who didn't have performance anxiety today, I figured we just open up right off the top since it's actually good news. Desmond Ridder, the fans showed up in droves. This was the most populous practice I've ever seen. I was not at training camp in 2017. I think you were, Adnan, so I think you said maybe that was the only other time. Yeah,
it was since 2017 is the last time that I saw the Hill that packed and that many fans at the facility. And I mean, it rivaled 2017, but yeah, I think 2017 was definitely the last year when it was like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and go check out the Twitter accounts from both of us. You'll see all the pictures. I mean, it was like an hour into practice, and there was still a line so big that we couldn't see the end of it from where we were standing on the field. So absolutely crazy crowd. So much fun to see everybody there. And the team, I think, responded in kind, especially the offense, where we saw the most important thing, obviously, great day from Desmond Ridder, by far his best practice. It was legitimately good. And you've heard us very lukewarm on Ridder the first 2 days in particular. Yesterday started to get a little bit better. Today was legitimately good. And then I thought, honestly, Taylor Heineke and Logan Woodside, the gritty backups behind Desmond Ridder, I thought they were good too. So really, that's why I'm going with the offense strikes back today, because I think they finally had a day where I think you could argue that the offense had the better day overall, whereas the last 3 days, I think it was pretty obviously the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Desmond Ridder, I mean, he looked poised out there. His deep shots were a lot better, and this was exactly what we were both looking for coming into today, and it's exactly what we wanted to see, because we had no questions about the short to intermediate game. We know that Desmond Ridder is good at that. Like what we've seen it at Cincinnati. We saw it the last 4 games of the season last year. We saw it the first 3 days of camp, and he didn't lose that at all. He had just as much zip on there. He was he and Heineke, they were both very automatic in that short to intermediate game. But, it was my entire questions were all within those deep shots. And I mean, they dialed a couple up immediately. Like they started that 7-on-7 drill earlier than they had at all the first 3 days. So, they went, they stretched, they did their walkthrough. Then I think they did the 7-on-7 before going into the 1-on-1s, and which that didn't happen earlier. So first play of 7-on-7s, they immediately dialed up the deep shot for Drake London. D. Alford was in coverage, and it was a very good pass from Desmond Ridder, and I think London personally drew a pass interference on the
Yeah.
play. I think it
Yeah.
would have been a pass interference in a real NFL game, which I mean that's a success. That's a successful play for the offense. Second play is was another deep shot once again, trying to hit the home run to London. This time, Jeff Okuda had some pretty good coverage, and that pass fell incomplete. But you know you could tell that there was a different type of poise to Desmond Ridder throughout practice today, especially when it came to some of those deeper passes. Because you know I mentioned it in our training camp article, which is going to publish pretty soon after the show ends. Even those shots that fell incomplete, you know, it wasn't like a perfect day. He did have some incompletions. Even the incompletions, they were they were 50-50 balls. So they were passes where, you know, the wide receiver had a legitimate chance at going up and getting it. Case in point, he threw one up to Frank Darby, which Darby got a hand on, which AJ Terrell matched him step for step, and he batted it away. Great play by AJ Terrell. But there's a difference, and it's a lot nicer to see now. Those passes were a lot closer. They were hitting or almost hitting the hands of the receivers. Whereas in the first 3 days, all those deep passes were just sailing 3, 4 feet over the wide receiver's head. And, you know, nobody has a chance at those. So, I mean, Ritter, other than that, did a great job of maneuvering around in the pocket, great patience, hit Penny hard on a really nice dig route later on in practice in, I think it was 7-on-7s, might have been 11-on-11s, where you know, he maneuvered a little bit to his right. He stayed patient, waited for Hart to get open, and you know ended up finding Hart, you know, pretty wide open over the middle of the field because of that patience. He hit Drake London on a nice toe tapper, which was pretty deep. He hit Cordero Patterson on his deepest pass of camp so far regarding air yards down the right sideline. I think it may have been Darren Hall who was covering, but it was pretty good tight coverage. That was the third pass to Patterson, which was completed. The first two passes of 7-on-7s were both completed to Patterson on either side of the field on flat routes. So there was some connection and chemistry with Cordero Patterson. But yeah, overall, it's exactly what you wanted to see from Desmond Ridder out there. And Taylor Heineke also, he deserves his own credit. He also was struggling deep the first 3 days, and he was connecting on some of those deep shots. Hit Kyle Pitts on a deep crossing pattern, uh, where it was, you know, very accurate. He
Mm-hmm.
had some connection with Michael Pruitt, and he had the only home run touchdown, so to speak, of the day to Keelan Harris
Mm-hmm.
toward the end of training camp on a deep post pattern, where you know Harris he did a great job of sort of, you know, clawing his way back into that wide receiver that battle that we'll talk about pretty shortly. But you know, great day for Ritter and Heineke. They're by far their best day so far.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ritter has improved with each passing day, and you know, it's a big difference today versus where he was on Wednesday, and it's one of the reasons why we were saying, you know, every single day, like still early, like no need to panic yet, don't panic. Like we do want to see, you know, we do want to see better results, but you know, hopefully they'll come in time. And today was the first day of those better results.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And again, we're also not like anointing Ritter. It's like, oh, well, Ritter's arrived. He had a good day, so therefore everything's fine.
Not at
It's
all,
like
not at
we're
all.
like, so we're not going that far either. But that's what we're really trying to say is like, you know, this is things are trending in a more positive direction, and you know, we would urge you to take this the last 2 days. I mean, I think yesterday they were solid, whereas before they were very shaky, I would say. And then today it was like legitimately good. So like if they can build on that, especially when we get the pads, which are we are expecting to happen early next week, and they're able to if they're able to continue on this trajectory, that's exactly what you want. And you look at the comparison to like Bryce Young, who had another bad practice today from reports, took a bad sack, threw a pick. I mean, like he had a great day one, and now has had a couple of bad practices. I'm not concerned about Bryce Young. I would urge Panthers fans not to be concerned. But like he had a great day one, then has had a couple rough days. Ridder had bad day one, and then maybe it has had a couple good days now. So it's like it. The moral of the story is don't put too much stock into the first few training camp practices and think that they're terribly predictive for anything. I mean, honestly, none of this is all that predictive. I mean, it's just hard to evaluate in the context of the NFL, like how good is this team when you're going up against, your own defense, because it's like, well, if your offense is bad, then your defense probably is going to look good. And if your defense is bad, maybe your offense will look good. If they both look bad, then I think you're probably in big trouble, if we're being honest. But, even that, like 4 days in, I don't think any team would feel confident making strong statements one way or the other about how they feel. But, Arthur Smith, I think to his credit, has been like, yeah, we saw some good things today, but we're just trying to keep building. Like that's what we want. It's a little bit better every single day, and to keep doing that going forward. And before we continue that conversation, because I know the receivers are the next thing we're going to want to talk about, do want to remind folks to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this program. If you're enjoying the show, if you are listening to the podcast audio, please leave us that 5-star review. If you're interested in contributing to the training camp fundraiser, we are actually almost 90% funded now. So terrific stuff there. Thanks everyone so much. That's massively helpful and has helped me relax quite a bit now about this, because now I'm not as concerned as I was before camp when it was only like 30% funded. So thank you guys so much. You guys always come through. Appreciate you. If you're interested in doing that, you can do streamlabs.com/thefalcoholic/tip, or you can do it on Venmo as well. Just leave a message in your comment. Speaking of that, we did have a $20 Venmo donation from Jeffrey. And Jeffrey says, use this to get yourself some beers. I think he meant at Sweetwater last night. But we did get free beers, and Adnan got free non-alcoholic refreshment. So we didn't need to use it at Sweetwater, Jeffrey, but don't worry, I will find beers at some point. And we'll fulfill that request for you. I'll buy Adnan a Coke or one of those fizzy orange drinks or something. Also, quick plug for the Patreon. If you're interested in taking part in those patron fantasy leagues, we're gonna be forming those. I meant to form them this week. Maybe I'll get to it tomorrow, but if not, it'll be next week early. So if you want to get in on that, make sure you sign up within the next week or two, because we'll probably start the draft right around the first preseason game, the drafts rather, because there's like 30 people trying to get in. So yeah, guys, check that out if you're interested. All right, Adnan, you mentioned the wide receivers. They're the real Falcons civil war. I think a lot of people think it's, Desmond Ridder, is he good or bad? And there's a big civil, but really it's Xavier Malone versus Keelan Harris truthers. And maybe there's a Slade Bolden faction emerging as well. I'm interested, Adnan, where you stand in this great debate. I believe Aaron Freeman has firmly staked out his corner with Keelan Harris. Obviously, Xavier Malone is my son, so I can never slander him. I'm wondering where you're landing in this debate.
I'm about to boycott this show for the Penny Hart erasure.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Because
Panthers legend. Excuse me. Yeah.
I'm waving the Penny Hart flag.
Yeah.
I don't think there's as many people behind me on that one, but I'm proudly and firmly, waving that flag and going into this war myself. But yeah, Zay Malone, we talked about it yesterday. He was the star. He was one of the stars of camp yesterday. Like he was fantastic, and it felt like he really created a bit of a gap, a bit of separation between himself and the others. The others being the wide receivers not named Drake London, Kadarrell Hodge, Mac Hollins, and Scotty Miller, because I think we're all in agreement that those 4 roster spots are safe. This is that battle for the 5th spot, possibly 6th wide receiver spot as well. But today, the others, those other guys sort of closed that gap a bit, because we didn't really call Zay Malone's name much today. We didn't really hear. He had a very quiet day today. Meanwhile, Penny Hart had some really nice catches from both Heineke and Ridder. Did a great job working over the middle, as did Slade Bolden. Slade Bolden, he was pretty quiet until that last session of scrimmages. He had a couple of really good catches, including a deep crossing pattern from Heineke on his front shoulder where he was sort of a diving catch, but Heineke did a great job with that placement. And Keelan Harris, I mean, I mentioned it
Yeah.
earlier. He scored that touchdown, the home run touchdown on the post. So it's it's exciting, and you wouldn't want to have it any other way going into week 2 of training camp now after tomorrow's off day, where you know all of a sudden where you thought that Zay Malone is going to pull away, all of a sudden these other guys are pretty much telling them, hey, we're here for a reason too. Like we're not going to go down fighting, or we're not going to go down without a fight. And there today was their sort of counterpunch. And moving forward, it'll be really exciting, especially when pads come on, to see who sort of starts to now separate themselves, and if they can continue with that separation, or will everyone else sort of catch back up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. I think it's always very exciting to see the competition, and that's really, I think, the crux of stuff. Thanks, Windows, for blasting everyone's eardrums right there. Yeah, the crux, I think, is like you want there to be a tough competition. You want that wide receiver 5 to have legitimately earned that spot, and I think the Falcons have done a good job of bringing in guys. So really, it just is who is going to be able to stack up the W's day after day. I think early on, it was pretty clear that Xavier Malone was the one that was coming out on top there. And today was a little bit quieter. He did have an opportunity for another really great play, just didn't quite come down with the catch in one-on-ones. It was really close. I think that was the first one he hasn't made. So like, I'm very much still all in on my son Xavier Malone. But what do these guys look like with the pads on? Because that is when it really, I think, sometimes changes, when you'll see some of the more diminutive receivers start to struggle, and some of the bigger, more physical guys like maybe a JJ Arcega-Whiteside or Kadero Hodge, obviously Mac Hollins. But Mac Hollins has been impressing without pads, so like I don't think there's any concern about him impressing with pads at this point. He deserves his own segment, probably, not just for the amazing quotes, but for his play as well. But yeah, it's been really fun. It's been one of the best competitions. I love wide receiver battles. I think everyone does. It's just one of the position groups. It's just fun to watch. And yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's obviously still wide open. We did see Xavier Malone get a few more opportunities with the 2s today, in like the earlier team sessions. But they're mixing a lot. It seems like they're committed to giving everyone some reps there. So I don't know that it's super meaningful at this stage, but yeah, Shaquavi Scott, Michael Pruitt's also my son. I'm basically Phillip Rivers. I have a lot of sons out there. So, these guys are all my best. But also on the note, Jason B asked about Justin Marshall. Justin Marshall was released before training camp. I think he was released after mandatory mini camp, so like last month. So yeah, Justin Marshall no longer out there. So that's why you haven't heard anything about him, Jason. Let's talk about Mac Hollins, because maybe the most pleasant surprise of this group. I mean, as much as we like to talk about the wide receivers and like the UDFAs and that wide receiver 5 battle is like wide open, Mac Hollins is making the roster, probably going to be the wide receiver 2. And I think a lot of people thought that he was not an inspiring candidate for that job, that the Falcons absolutely had to get an upgrade there, whether that was in the draft or by going and making a trade, or, obviously we're still on hashtag Corey Davis watch, but Mac Hollins has been one of the early stars, actually, and had an exceptional touchdown working against AJ Terrell today on what was really a perfect pass from Desmond Ridder. Glad I got one of those on camera so people would believe it, because they could actually see Ridder throw the pass. But what do you think about Mac Hollins, how he's looked so far?
Yeah, I mean, Mac Hollins, he's done the job so far. He has looked how you would want him to look in those one-on-ones. He looks like he came to training camp built looks like he was really hitting the gym hard over the off season. And yeah, he had another had another great play against AJ Terrell. I think it was a bit of a fade pattern today in one-on-ones. Perfect pass from Desmond Ridder on that one, and I was seeing the conspiracy theory of, oh, you only show Desmond Ridder when the pass is good, but when the pass sucks, you never know who the quarterback is. So some Falcons fans are running with that conspiracy theory. Um, but yeah, like with Mac Hollins, the only thing I haven't really seen much, I haven't seen him targeted as much during the scrimmage periods, like
Yeah.
the 7-on-7, the 11-on-11s. Like Mac Hollins looks really good in one-on-ones, and I don't. This isn't me questioning if he can play or not. Like Mac Hollins can play. Like Mac Hollins proved that in Oakland that he can play. He's a very capable and very worthy wide receiver. But I would like to see him targeted more and making some more catches in those scrimmage periods, because I put more stock into the scrimmages than I do into the one-on-ones. Because
Yeah.
scrimmages, you're actually facing some set defenses and multiple defenders, and you get some of those zone looks. You get some of these guys. Whereas one-on-ones, it's just like, all right, you versus someone else, and it's just go over there and get it.
Yeah, and like the wide receivers have a huge advantage in one-on-ones. I mean, it's almost like to the level where it's really, if a defensive player comes away with the win, like you should be like really thrilled. Um, but yeah, I mean, with Hollins, it's like I don't actually like feel that way, because like he doesn't. I mean, that one route he put on, was it? I can't remember. I think it was Akuda, the first day or whatever, or the second day, where he just whooped him on that like I can't remember the route at now. I've seen so many routes. I'm gonna say with the wrong route, I'm sure. So I won't even say what route it was. But it was like a double move basically. But like when he beat Terrell today, he just was sort of like, I'm just gonna run a fade to the end zone and you got to beat me, and it just was perfect. So, yeah, I would also like to see it in the scrimmages. It seems like they've been really spreading the ball pretty well. Like we haven't just seen, we haven't really seen Kyle Pitts much. We did actually see Kyle Pitts in the like scrimmage today catch a nice pass over the middle, where he got on the, he had to dive for it, got rolled around, and that Arthur Smith made a joke that like, oh, we're finally gonna have to wash his jersey. He got some grass on there. We didn't have to wash it before today. So
And
um
for the record, that I know Arthur Smith is having fun with that. That's a huge step. That's massive. Like Kyle Pitts played down the mental aspect of a knee injury, and of coming back from that torn MCL. No, and Kyle Pitts is being a strong football guy out here. I don't believe him for a second. Um, because I know these athletes are like wired different. They're built different, but just talking from some personal experience of having had my own like sort of meniscus problems and like some knee problems over the last uh, couple years. The mental hurdle is a real thing, especially when you're going back and you're going back to sports, and Kyle Pitts playing much higher level sports than I could ever like hope to. But it's a huge step by step process. And Kyle Pitts in the press conference said, "Oh yeah, like after surgery, I just flipped the mental switch, and I'm like, oh, it is what it is." But no, I don't think I don't believe him, because I do think that going back onto that football field for the first time post surgery, go running for the first time post surgery, running in a straight line, cutting for the first time. Those are, even deep down, even if you don't want to admit it, those are huge, huge moments. Going out there for the first practice is probably huge. And, another thing that's another key step is, making a catch and going down to the ground the way that he did today. It was on a Taylor Heineke pass. I think it was pretty deep down the field. He made the catch. It was a really nice catch. But I think these are really big mental hurdles, and it's nice. I'm sure even if he doesn't want to admit it, he came up out of that relieved and probably thinking, all right, like now that I got through that, like this is great. Now we can move on, like sort of to the next thing. We've sort of cleared that roadblock.
Yeah, I hope so. And he certainly hasn't acted, like he's been timid or anything, but I think he's been clearly under directions to not, push it too much. I don't think he's going full speed, to be honest with people. He's getting a fair amount of reps. This was the first day with team stuff. So I think over the next, Arthur Smith basically said, like, if he had to play in 2 weeks, they might be doing something different. Like they might be trying to ramp him up a lot faster and so on. But like,
I think that's
they
just
don't have to.
Smith's way of saying we're not seeing him week 1 of the preseason, because that's 2 weeks away.
Yeah, exactly. So like, they're not going to rush him out there. He doesn't need to prove anything. I mean, apparently he needs to prove things to fantasy heads and people that think he's a bust, even though he had a 1,000-yard season as a rookie tight end, which has happened like one time in NFL history. Other than the time he did it, there's no reason to rush him out there. Let him come back as quickly as he's comfortable and then get him out there and let him crush it. We will Shaquavius will definitely get to the signings and the transactions today for sure. That'll probably be the next thing we cover. Lisa Ray says, "Saw y'all at Shoguns." Hey, what's up, Lisa? Yeah. You should have said hi. Yeah. Nice. Don't be afraid. We're nice. We did go to Shoguns in Flowery Branch with Will McFadden. It was tasty, very tasty. Adnan, not a big vegetable guy, I learned. So I ate Adnan's vegetables.
Not huge on vegetables. Very big on protein.
Yes.
Very big protein fan, but yeah.
Protein guy. Yeah. Huge
meathead.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna go there. He's carved up. Adnan is carved up. He's a slab of beef over here. So, then we have a $5 donation from Drew Elliott 2119. Drew, what's up, man? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. He says, "Do you guys feel that Arthur Smith is on the hot seat if we were to miss the playoffs?" Okay, so I will admit that we do have some inside information here to suggest that, and all I will say on that is no. Now, if it's like 0-16, then yes. So, there is a situation, I'm sure. There's always a situation where if something is that catastrophic or like some crazy stuff happens that like, sure, maybe he could be on the hot seat. But I think within the realm of the reasonable, the answer is no, that he's not on the hot seat.
And I think we also, like, what are the circumstances behind that? Like, is it you miss the playoffs at 9-8 where you have some bad breaks and 1-score games and you just you just sort of don't get there? Is it the team is an absolute disaster and you end up 2-15? Because those are two very different things. Is it you suffered some catastrophic injuries and that really hindered you? Because we have precedent with that. Like, remember 2013 under Mike Smith's Falcons, the team pretty much had a lost year due to injuries, and Arthur Blank was like, all right, we'll just chalk this up as an injury season. No harm to anyone until the Falcons again in 2014 were pretty dog shit. 2018 the Falcons suffered those catastrophic injuries early on in the season, and that was never held against Dan Quinn. So Arthur Blank has that precedent of if injuries do come into play, he doesn't really hold that against the decision makers that much, because how can you? But it's, for the most part, the answer is no. I don't think he would be on the hot seat. Now we're talking about you missed the playoffs this year, you missed the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
But that's we haven't even gotten a preseason of this year yet. That's a very far down the line type thing.
Yeah. I think Adnan summed it up well. Yes, it's possible that 2 years from now, if they still haven't made the playoffs, then absolutely. I think this year is okay, we finally got a team. Let's see what happens. I think the expectations are high, so that if he doesn't make the playoffs, he's not actively on the hot seat. But I think he would be going into next year with the expectation that, okay, now this is the year you have to make the playoffs, or we're going to need to make changes. So
I will say, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I feel like the training camp press conferences will be a lot less loose next year.
Yeah, I think it's going to
so far this year, because Arthur Smith has been a pleasure
Yeah, he's been
Like
nice. He's been fun.
he's been so pleasant and fun, like to the media these few days. Like we saw the D Orlando Ledbetter fine
Yeah,
yesterday, and yeah,
yeah,
God love D Led. It's great to have him back. Um, but yeah, he's yeah, like his son Liam was there yesterday, joining us in the press conference. Um, he talked about he talked about how he can't be too biased in picking some of Liam's jerseys. He can't just give him all the offensive players, because then the defensive guys will be like, oh, like but yeah, like he genuinely has been, such a pleasure to the media, like these past few days. And I mean, he called you out on some of the Syracuse stuff
yeah.
facetiously.
Every time I ask, he's like, is this about Bergeron? Like, are you asking me about Bergeron's?" I'm getting to that. I mean, I was gonna open with the Hennessy question today, but he got
Yeah,
the Bergeron out of me. So
but it's been really nice. And I mean, yeah, he has, he's sporting that very stylish mustache, which he still has it. Hopefully, he has it throughout the year. But definitely, I don't think Arthur Smith is under any like much pressure at all this year, because the first 2 years, like, that roster was really bad. And I mean, I think he squeezed blood out of a rock to even get 7 wins last year and seven
yeah,
wins the year before. I think that's a testament to just how good of a coach and how good of a play caller Arthur Smith is. Context is needed for everything. And, I'm sure some people, like some of the national guys, some of the non-Falcons fans, and even some of the people within our own fan base, not our viewers, because, but
obviously you guys have impeccable taste. So yeah,
yeah, you guys are great. But like, some people will look at it and be like, "Oh, 14-20, like, that's horrible." No, no, it's not. Like, look at, like, sure, on the surface, 14-20, like, that's a really bad 2-year record. It's 6 games below 500. But look at what you had to work with. Look at the fact that you had the most dead money in the NFL last year through no fault of your own. This was no fault of Terry Fontenot's. It was no fault of Arthur Smith's. Look at 2 years ago, having the roster that you had at your disposal, where it was a bunch of below replacement level players. Some players who were starting for you who would not be backups in
yeah,
most other teams. And this is the first year where you have a legitimate, like, good football team, where you've actually, like, been able to invest, because you finally taken the albatross off your neck that the previous regime tied on there when you joined.
yeah. And like it, for better or worse, Arthur Blank is one of the more patient owners, and we saw the worst, with the Dan Quinn Dimitrov regime, where they really got a year that they had no business getting, and it was really bad, and they made the salary cap infinitely worse that year.
For the record, we were calling, what we were calling for that termination,
Yeah,
like, what, from the beginning. Like, what
yeah,
we were like, all right, this isn't going to work out. I remember, I think I went on a very, very heated rant after they lost that Titans game against Mariota. What was it? Was 2019?
yep,
I think it was in 2019 where they lost the Titans game, where I was like, all right, like, this is it. Like, I'm officially calling for Dan Quinn, like, to be fired. And instead of, they kept him all year, and then they kept him into next year, and then that's what really screwed them. So we were calling for it. Like, we weren't here. It's not like now hindsight of we're saying, oh yeah, they should have cut bait. We were saying that from the very beginning of, like, when
yeah.
it should have happened.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, and it's, but that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, for better or worse, he's a patient owner. He's going to try to give his guys an opportunity, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it leads to stuff that's good. Like, a lot of owners would be like saying, like, oh, like, to Arthur Smith, like, if you don't make the playoffs this year, you're fired. Like, even though cleaning up the previous regime's mess is something that, like, it's going to take time, and expecting to field a super competitive roster with, like, what, 40% of the salary cap occupied with dead money, it's just not reasonable. The Falcons had by far the cheapest defense in the NFL last year. It was not close. The offense too was one of the lowest paid. So, like, it's I think at this stage it's good that he's comfortable, and I don't think he's like comfortable in the sense that he doesn't feel pressure, but I don't think he feels pressure to be fired. I think he feels the right kind of pressure, which is like he has internal motivation because he's a competitive guy and a really competitive coach that wants to win a Super Bowl because he wants to win a Super Bowl, not because he's worried about getting fired, but because he wants to field a good football team. He wants to bring this city a championship, just like Arthur Blank, just like all of us want. He's clearly passionate. So like, do I think he's comfortable? Like maybe, but I don't think it's for the wrong reasons at this stage. I think he feels that the we know for a fact that the regime has full confidence in him. For better or worse, the team, the owner, everyone's behind Arthur Smith, and so that means that he has the leeway to do what he thinks is best and not try to save his job. Because I think, Arthur Blank probably learned some lessons from the Dimitrov Quinn thing. I suspected, next time he probably won't give them that extra year. Where that's like, okay, if you don't win this year, you're going to lose your job. So what did they do? They maxed out the salary cap and made a lot of decisions that ultimately led to Dan Quinn led to Arthur Smith having to clean up the mess even worse because they were trying to save their job. Yeah,
it's almost like they had a local blog who covers the Falcons, who does a live show every Wednesday, saying that this is obviously what they're gonna do if they're desperate. And nobody listens to us, so it was a couple of lean years. But I mean, like, legitimately, I don't even blame them. Like, looking back, you can't even blame Dimitrov and Dan Quinn for doing what they did. The Dante Fowler signing, pushing a lot of those contracts back with the restructures, all of those short-sighted win now moves, because of course they're going to do that. Like, they're trying to save their job. Like, I would do the same thing if I was in their situation. Like, why do I care about 3 years from now if you're going to fire me at the end of this year? So I mean, that was just that's just never a good idea. It's just never a good idea to put someone in that position of, you're going to get fired. Like, you're about to get, like, you should be fired now, but I'm going to give you one more chance. And of course you're going to make some desperation moves, and we see where that got us.
Yeah, it's not a good way to do things, without a doubt. It just isn't. And what's up, out of your Falcon mind? Another quality Falcons program out there, guys. If you haven't listened to those guys, check them out. He says the sizes of Mac Drake and Kyle Pitts. Feeling pretty good about those 50-50 balls. Yeah, I mean, I think so far they've, today especially, we saw some great 50-50 completions that were doing great. All right, we also got Eric Pogger. I don't know, one of the two. Eric with a K, though. I love that. With the $2, thank you so much, man. Says, since we're going positionless football, are we going to see Felipe Franks at cornerback and punt returner? I don't think they mean like literally positionless, like we don't care, just go line up somewhere. But I mean, Felipe Franks is a very good athlete. I think maybe safety if we're I mean, honestly, like defensive end, even like if he bulks up, maybe I mean, I don't think he's like at 235, so he's at like Vic Beasley weight, but probably gonna need to get that weight up if he wants to play on defense. Punt returner, he is very athletic, but I don't trust his hands enough for that. Although he did have actually a nice catch today. I think it was either in 1-on-1s or 7-on-7. But before that, I know somebody else asked about Felipe too, for a Felipe update. It hasn't been as good as last year's camp. But we also saw that he did literally nothing outside of camp. So maybe he needs a quiet camp and an actually productive preseason and regular season. So we'll hope for the best there with Felipe. And we did have Eric Abramson just subbed on Patreon. Yeah, thank you, Eric. Says, want to support you all in the amazing coverage you do. Thank you, Eric. We appreciate you. And you reminded me that I need to shout out a couple of new patrons as well. We had, over the last few days, we've had Rory Simmons join us. Welcome, Rory. We've had Matthew Warren join, as well as Jeremy Katow. 4 new patrons here in the last couple of days. So thank you guys so much for your support. Appreciate you.
We have
Um,
151 people watching too. It's been
yeah,
a while since we've hit those numbers. You know
yeah,
that the season's around the corner.
right. It's been a dark, June and early July. That's literally the slowest time. But
Yeah, we had the 50 or so diehards in here
yeah,
while we were ranking the
the
most tortured
real
fan bases
sickos.
in early July. Love
Yep.
you guys.
Yeah, love you guys. Thanks for sticking around. Without a doubt, we typically get 1,000 views, 1,000 podcast listens, even in the depths of the off season. So thanks to the diehards for keeping that going. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to remember what else we haven't touched on yet. I mean, have we talked? We talked a lot about the receivers
Oh,
being really good. Yeah,
let's talk about Clark Phillips.
yeah, yeah. Please continue the hype train. Yeah,
Clark Phillips had a pick six today.
yeah,
Like like it was the only interception of the day so far. I'm running the interception counter. I am making this my brand for this training camp. But we're at four, and Clark Phillips got number four today. It was, and don't worry, guys, it wasn't on Desmond Ridder. I think I said it on Will's podcast. It's like the best of both worlds, where you had Clark Phillips make a great play, and it was off Logan Wood's side, so you're not panicking about, oh my God, Desmond Ridder threw a pick. Um, but no, shout out to Logan Woodside. He had a great day yesterday. Not as great today, but still very sharp. Um, so little flat route to the left. The intended target was Penny Hart, and Clark Phillips just straight undercuts it, picks it off. Amazing cornerback instincts, complete ball hawking ability. The exact thing that you want him to do on that play, he did. And yeah, it would have been an easy six the other way in a real game, an easy six. Um, and yeah, he had the rep against Xavier Malone where Malone could not come down with the catch. That was Phillips on that coverage. Um, and I mean, yeah, Phillips. Every day we're calling his name. Every day he seems to be doing something else that's special. He is not going to be running with the threes for very much longer.
yeah,
He like he had he's been probably the star of camp so far, and it's nice to see. And the entire secondary was good.
yeah,
Even though the offense won the day, the secondary still sort of got their pound of flesh today.
yeah, yeah.
AJ Terrell had a great pass breakup against Frank Darby deep on a deep pass. I think that was one of two pass breakups for Terrell on the day. Jeff Okuda looked sharp. I was raving about this play he had against Scotty Miller, where I just loved the veteran know-how of just sort of using the sideline as a second defender, where Scotty Miller caught a pass, uh, but Okuda sort of forced him out of bounds on the catch, and it was a great catch by Miller deep, but it was ruled an incompletion out of bounds. Okuda defended Drake London on the second pass of 7-on-7s. After that would-be pass interference from Alford, the very next play was a deep shot to London, which was defended by Jeff Okuda. Okuda's looked pretty solid. Jesse Bates had uh, a pass breakup on a pass intended for Parker Hesse over the middle as well. So the secondary continues to look really good, and at this point, the star of that secondary so far in camp has been Clark Phillips.
Yeah, I mean Clark Phillips has been awesome. Which as I think we were pounding the table as like, oh, this might be the like, other than Bijan, probably the most underrated like high upside pick of the draft.
I don't know. I would say most high upside. I wouldn't say underrated because I feel like every
Yeah,
single person was like,
yeah,
how the hell did this guy fall to the fourth round?
because he's short and was like a 5.5 RAS. That's why. But guess what? Like
Bro,
that's
he,
half. That's only half the game. The other half, the instincts, the anticipation, the
he
ball skills. I mean,
he's wiping his ass with that RAS score
yeah,
and those short
yeah,
allegations so far because
mhm,
he he looks like everything you would want in a cornerback out there with his technique, with his attitude, and Arthur Smith called him out a little bit about over celebrating that interception, waving to the crowd. The coaches wanted him to get right back, right back into position because he was supposed to be on the next play too. But AJ Terrell talked yesterday about how coachable he's been and how how receptive he's been of what the coaches have been talking to him about, and just going out there after the coaches talk to him about anything, just making plays. So that's exactly the type of mentality you want to have on your team.
Yeah, and people forget, everybody, when you look at his workout, his combine performance, 5'9", 184, okay, not big, right? 4'5", 140, still above average. I think it's a 66th percentile, but it doesn't, when you're smaller, I think a lot of people expect that you're going to run in the 4.4s, and I don't blame people for that. But people don't realize, because they don't always publicize these numbers, but his 20-yard split at 258 is 81st percentile, and his 10-yard split at 152 is 89.9 percentile. So his short area quickness is excellent. And that's what you can see is his recovery speed is really good. He's really sticky. He doesn't have tremendous long speed, but his instincts are so good and his ball skills are so good that he doesn't really need it because he's usually in the right position. And it's nice to be faster. It's nice to have ups and to have length and all that stuff that's going to help you. But ultimately, you just have to be in the right position more often than not. And if you're in the right position because you predicted where the ball is going to go, that's how you create turnovers. It's not being 4-3. I mean, look at Desmond Southward, right? Sorry, Desmond, if you thought it was safe to come back to Falcons media, it's never going to be safe. Sorry. Ran like a 4-3 and was completely worthless. You couldn't tell. Not worthless. Like, to be fair to Desmond Southward, yeah. To be fair to Desmond, he was probably like a top, 1 to 2% of all football players type of player. But like, in terms of the NFL,
I mean,
mostly works.
Time, yeah. Like your 40 time, it doesn't tell you. Like, I think Kendall Sheffield was arguably the fastest guy in his entire draft class. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he was solid for a little bit, and then he just was really bad. But yeah, no, that comment that Kevin just had about how sticky he is, that's brought to you by Blue Chew.
Yeah. I'm not gonna touch that one. We'll leave that. That's all Adnan, yeah. But that's good though. I like that. Yeah, and I do love how passionate he is too. You hear everyone praising his work ethic, and he's very coachable. Arthur Smith basically saying he'll go out there, he'll make mistakes just like every young player, and then they give him the feedback, and he doesn't say anything. He's just like, okay. And he goes and does it. He doesn't have anything to say back. He doesn't have any critiques of what he's being told. He's just like, okay, coach. And he goes and does it. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we will see Clark Phillips with the second team, next week. That's a good time to make changes to the depth chart. And the other guy that I think has been not getting the hype has been Darren Hall. He's ended up on the third team. I don't really think through any fault of his own because I think he was fine last year. But Darren Hall had 2 pass breakups today going up against some pretty decent receivers. So, there's going to be a lot of tough decisions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it seems like Hall maybe has fallen out of favor. Again, not necessarily to him playing poorly just because they brought in Jeff Okudah, they brought in Clark Phillips, they brought in Mike Hughes to go along with the guys they already have. It's just there's not a lot of space for someone like that. It's just going to be tougher to make the roster. But I do think that Darren Hall showed that he should be in the mix at the very least for that last roster spot. And we know he can play both man and zone at a high level. So, high level relative. I mean, I think Darren Hall is probably like a CB4 type of guy at best. But you need those guys on your roster. So we'll have to see. Before we get out of here, because we're almost to an hour, we should probably talk about the transactions. We did see a flurry of moves last night into today, and then we got the corresponding moves. So the Falcons did sign 2 players. They signed defensive tackle Justin Ellis, who is affectionately referred to as Big Jelly Bean. Nose tackle Justin Ellis, I should say. And then we also saw an edge rusher signed Kamoko Toure. And the Falcons placed Eddie Goldman on the exempt left squad list, which is different than retired. And I'll explain what that means in a second. And then they also did release linebacker Dorian Etheridge, which I thought was pretty surprising. So before I get your takes on that, Adnan. I will say that the exempt left squad list is different than the retirement list. It means that he hasn't, basically he's just left, so the Falcons retain his rights, but he doesn't count against the roster. It also means that he's eligible to return, and like they could activate him off that list if he shows back up. So it seems like they're sort of leaving the door open for him to still come back, but for whatever reason he was not. We don't know any detail. We haven't heard anything other than that he apparently did show up for the first day of training camp. And Arthur Smith said he looked good, like he looked like he was in shape and potentially ready to get on the field. And he's just dealing with some personal stuff, and we don't know if that's like him, if that's family or whatever. It could be anything. I don't want to speculate on it. So all I'll say is that I hope that Eddie Goldman's okay, and I hope his family and everybody's okay. And if he wants to play and he can, I would like to see him. I would love to see him play in Atlanta. I don't think the door is 100% closed. I would say it's about 90% closed, though. So we'll see. But yeah, what do you think about the team's first moves of the camp season so far, Adnan?
I mean, the Ellis news happened last night, where I think we were just about to start our show over at Sweetwater when we heard, and it was like, yeah, that's sort of a reading of the tea leaves. That, yeah, you signed a defensive tackle. I think they even gave him like Natty Goldman's number. So that's sort of like super told you that, yeah, like Goldman, who Arthur Smith said yesterday was contemplating re-retirement, that he would have an update today. And I think, last night was sort of a jumping of the gun of, yeah, like that. This is the update early, unofficially, that Goldman would not be back. Whatever's happening with Goldman in his personal life, we wish him the best, and most importantly, we hope everything is okay with him and his family. If he does not return, then I definitely wish him the best in the rest of his life. Um, the Etheridge the Etheridge release was kind of shocking. Like I remember sitting next to you when Arthur Smith like said it, and I had to like do a double take and just like reconfirm that. Wait, did he just say like that Dorian
Yeah.
Etheridge is like gone? And yeah, I mean, this is a guy who I thought like had a legitimate shot at a roster spot. Um, but I guess not. Like we did see Nate Landman and Michael
Yeah.
Walker running with the ones a little bit at the linebacker position. It seems like Michael Walker, like he was mentioned by coach specifically today, is a guy that they're cross training a little bit. So it seems like Walker will, it feels like I think his spot is a lot safer than I personally thought it was a couple of weeks ago. Seems like he's one of those guys who's a near roster lock at this point. Nate Landman is another dude who played pretty well. But yeah, I thought at the very least Etheridge would be given the preseason and would be a practice squad candidate, but apparently not. And who knows, if that was on the field performance based, if it was something that wasn't related to anything on the field, we don't know. We would just be blindly speculating. I mean, Justin Ellis is veteran nose tackle. He's played in a lot of games in his NFL career. I think he's played 9 seasons. He's a 9-year vet.
Yeah.
Played all 17 games for the Giants last year. Played for the Ravens. Was a starter for the Raiders. Way back in 2017. Had a really, really bad PFF score last year.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that I would not I wouldn't expect Justin Ellis to be a big factor for the roster, to be honest.
I think he's just a warm body.
Yes,
Like,
I think he is a depth nose tackle, which is probably his best position at this point. But I think based on what we've seen from Timmy Horn, like we haven't seen full contact, so it's hard to gauge. But it seems like they like Timmy Horn. They're comfortable with him playing with the ones, and I think he's looked fine. I mean, the defensive line as a whole, I think, has played the run very well. So, maybe they're, and then I think Carlos Davis, the other veteran nose tackle they brought in, I think he's looked fine as well. So, I wouldn't really expect a lot from Ellis. Kamoko Toure is like slightly more interesting, but because I think he is actually like a rosterable depth edge guy, and the team was interested in him last year too. He chose the 49ers instead. But
Couldn't
we've
live with
talked.
his own failure. Look at where that's brought him back to
The
us.
Falcons are inevitable free agents, right? But there's just not roster space for him, so he's probably looking at the practice squad at this stage. But I like Toure. I mean, he would be like by far the best edge they've had on the practice squad in a long time. So
I mean,
I mean,
like I'm
yeah,
like looking at some of his career numbers. He had 5.5 sacks as
yeah,
just a pure like rotational non-starter with the Colts a couple of years ago.
yeah.
Like
He's a solid guy.
like, that would have been second on the team last year. Shit.
Yeah.
I think it would have been second on the team in 2021 too. I think only Grady Jarrett had more than 5.5 last year.
Yeah. So, I like Teray, so I wouldn't count him out. But like I said, it's a very crowded edge room, so I think at this point he's probably looking at the practice squad. But you never know. We got a lot of camp left, a lot of practice, and 3 preseason games to get to, where he'll probably get a lot of work. So, he was out there today. I think he may have had a sack. I wasn't sure on the number. Well, I thought it was Etheridge at first, and then it was like, wait, no, that Etheridge is not here anymore, so that must be somebody else. It was 48. So I think he did have a sack or close to a sack on like Logan Woodside right off the bat. So definitely someone to monitor as we get into pads and see how that stuff works out. But yeah, well, Adnan, we're up over an hour already. How time flies. There's just a lot to talk about. This team's really interesting this year. It's nice. I think last year we were sort of like sometimes a little bit stretched, like, oh, Mariota and Ridder, they're splitting the reps again, and yeah. The defense is not. The offense is crushing them.
We definitely go into these like daily shows, or these like training camp recap shows, like pretty much expecting, all right, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, half an hour, like maybe max 35, 40. But yeah, time does fly. There's a lot, and honestly, I think it helps that you and I are there every single day, and we're both like intently watching everything throughout the day, and there's just a lot of stuff to bring up, a lot of stuff to talk about, and it's just a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of like really good information to the viewers who people who can't like be there. Like obviously, like some people don't live in Georgia. Some people like can't make it out. Like it's shit. It was very crowded. It's like it's hard to make it out like to Flowery Branch at like 9:30, like on any day on a weekday. Like it's sure today's Saturday, but still there was like that crash on like 85, which like almost made you late.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a testament to how much has been going on and how much excitement there's been and how excited we both are that these daily shows are lasting as much as our Wednesday live shows normal.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's fun. I mean, I don't mind doing daily shows if there's stuff to talk about. I mean, it's like in the off season, it's like, oh God, like, are we going to be able to fill the hour? And like, we always do, Adnan. We're professionals. So, but let's just say I'm happy to not have to, dedicate about, an entire like 8-9 episodes of the podcast to, breaking down individual position groups, to get through the dead zone with training camp previews, talking about guys that we haven't seen yet.
It's like speculating. They're subtweeting Aaron Freeman right now.
No, I mean, like I actually did that as well, so I can't dunk on Aaron Freeman for that series either, because I also had to get on that grind. But it's a lot more fun to talk about players that you've seen that day and like have video of and have gotten to meet and interact with and seen the whole team out there and that sort of thing. So happy that we are through the dead zone, certainly, and the preseason's right around the corner. So we'll have another, in case you guys forgot, Sunday is an off day, so no practice. We will be resting and recuperating. Yep.
Yeah,
so tired.
Oh my God, yeah,
so
tired. It's been that nonstop grind of just like every single day.
Yeah.
And now it's like, all right, like like coach, you guys couldn't have built in an off day, within one of these first 4 days.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, also what's also really funny, and I see the comment from ex pizza man right now. We haven't mentioned Bijan at all
That's
on the
funny.
show,
Yeah.
which is wild. It's been an hour. Yeah, Bijan looks great.
Yeah, Bijan's great. Yeah.
Yeah, Bijan looks fantastic.
He still looks great. Yeah.
Yeah, beat Troy Anderson on a one-on-one today.
Yep.
He yeah, looks very special whenever he has fans go crazy whenever he has the ball in his hands. And I mean, we'll see more of Bijan we'll see more of what Bijan can really do when the pads come off.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to see more. Mercifully, like we said, off day tomorrow, so don't be expecting any clips or any information because there isn't any practice. But yeah, in the meantime, guys, please do like and subscribe. We appreciate all 150 plus of you for hanging out with us today. Went with a little bit of an earlier show because it's a Saturday, right? And maybe maybe some people actually have a chance to hit it earlier. And then we can rest. Now we rest. But if you're listening to the podcast audio, please leave us that 5-star review as well. Oh yeah, and a couple people did mention how does Goldman not being on the roster affect the cap space, and the answer is it doesn't. He was making like $1 million, so it doesn't move the needle at all. If it did, it would be in a very minimal way. So yeah, no cap relief, nothing significant to report there in terms of the cap space. But yeah, before we sign off, guys, do want to thank Adnan Ikic once again for gutting out another hour-long training camp recap show with me. He is at Say Which Way on Twitter. Anything else you'd like to let people know about Adnan?
Our day 4 training camp news and notes.
Oh yeah, we still got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But by the way, I probably should be telling you this off air, but yeah, I put mine in. Just put in your part, and then you can publish at any point.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's already ready. Like
okay. I appreciate that. Great job. Great job we did great work on that article. By we I mean Adnan. So I'll give it some polish. I'll give it a once over. Add a couple tweets. SEO optimization, right?
SEO. We do love that SEO out here.
We do love it. Yes. Well, thank you for your hard work on that, Adnan. I will. Yeah, guys, I'm Kevin Knight, Falcoholic Kevin. Please do follow me there. Like I said, if you want to donate to the training camp fundraiser, you can do so off air as well. Just make sure you leave a question. We will get to it on the next show that we do. Venmo on my Twitter is there as well if you prefer that. Like I said, with the Patreon fantasy leagues are filling up, or will be soon. So if you want to get in on that, hit that up, patreon.com/FalcoholicLive. Check out our community Discord server if you want to chat, hang out with like-minded Falcons fanatics. And yeah, guys, we will be back. Not tomorrow. We will be back Monday once again for day 5 of Falcons training camp, and I will be there through Wednesday. And I believe Adnan will be there through Wednesday as well.
I'll also be there through Wednesday, and then one more time next Saturday as well.
Yep. And then after that, it'll basically be the preseason. So
And Will McFadden, neither of us will be there Friday, but Will did say he will be there Friday. So we'll still have some alcoholic representative covering on Friday as well.
Yeah, and then once they get into the preseason week, things start to change a little bit. So, yeah, guys, thank you very much. Today's show was, of course, brought to you by BetOnline. And yeah, appreciate everyone for hanging out. We'll see you guys next time on the Falcoholic Live. Have a great night, folks. See you next time.